Mark Carney's statements on U.S. tariffs, focusing on his public response, the broader context of Canada-U.S. trade relations, and the implications for both countries. Mark Carney responds to U.S. tariffs with measured strategy. Introduction. Mark Carney, former governor of the Bank of Canada and Bank of England, became Canada's Prime Minister in March 2025. Shortly after taking office, he was faced with a major challenge. The United States, under President Donald Trump, imposed aggressive new tariffs on Canadian goods. Carney's public response has been calm, strategic, and forward-looking, focused on protecting Canadian interests while maintaining the possibility of future cooperation with the U.S. Tariffs announcement and Carney's first reaction. On August 1, 2025, the Trump administration escalated its trade war with Canada by raising tariffs to 35% on Canadian goods not covered under the Canada-United States-Mexico Agreement CUSMA. These goods include steel, aluminum, lumber, automobiles, and electronics, critical components of Canada's export economy. In response, Carney expressed disappointment, calling the U.S. move unhelpful and damaging to both economies. He emphasized that Canada had been acting in good faith and adhering to international trade rules, particularly those outlined in CUSMA, under which about 85% of Canadian exports to the U.S. are still protected. Reassuring the Canadian public, Carney addressed Canadians directly, assuring them that his government would protect Canadian jobs through targeted subsidies and support programs, invest in Canadian manufacturing and industrial capacity, strengthen internal trade by eliminating interprovincial barriers, explore new global markets to reduce reliance on U.S. trade, push back diplomatically while avoiding an immediate full-scale trade war. He also emphasized that Canada contributes only 1% to the U.S. fentanyl problem, a claim cited by the Trump administration as a justification for tariffs. Carney said Canada had already taken strong border and customs actions to prevent opioid trafficking. Negotiation and realism. Leading up to the August decision, Carney had described Canada-U.S. negotiations as intense, warning Canadians to expect some level of tariffs regardless of the outcome. He admitted that a zero-tariff future was unlikely, but emphasized Canada's goal was to limit the scope of new duties. Canada also made some gestures of goodwill, such as pausing planned retaliatory tariffs and canceling a proposed digital services tax, in an effort to create space for serious talks. Still, Trump's administration proceeded with the tariff hike. Strategic policy measures. Rather than escalating the situation, Carney turned inward, launching several major domestic policies. The One Canadian Economy Act focused on breaking down interprovincial trade barriers, allowing businesses to trade freely across provinces. Massive infrastructure investment, a multi-billion-dollar plan to modernize ports, railways, and highways to enhance Canada's export competitiveness. Buy Canadian policy, promoting Canadian goods and services across public sectors. Export diversification, expanding trade relationships with the EU, UK, and Indo-Pacific nations. Carney's strategy is to use the U.S. pressure as a reason to strengthen Canada's economic sovereignty without closing the door on cross-border cooperation. Criticism and political pressure. Domestically, Carney's response drew mixed reviews. Some provincial leaders, like Ontario Premier Doug Ford, called for stronger retaliatory action. Others praised Carney's disciplined and measured tone, saying it helped avoid a full economic war. Business leaders have expressed concern about uncertainty in supply chains and rising costs for exports and imports. Sectors like automotive manufacturing, forestry, and construction are particularly vulnerable. Still, many agree that a balanced response is better than an emotional reaction. Economic impact. Economists warn that the tariffs will likely lead to job losses in targeted industries, rising costs for consumers and manufacturers, delays and shortages in supply chains, weaker investor confidence in cross-border projects. However, the Carney government has moved swiftly to cushion the blow, providing subsidies, tax breaks, and emergency funds to industries most affected. Canada's long-term vision. Carney is pushing Canada to think beyond its traditional trade patterns. While the U.S. remains a vital partner, Canada is moving to deepen trade with Europe through the CETA agreement, expand into Asia-Pacific via CPTPP, negotiate new trade pathways in Africa and South America. He also mentioned strengthening national production in strategic areas like green energy, aerospace, and digital services. International reactions. Other countries affected by U.S. tariffs, such as Mexico, Germany, and South Korea, have expressed support for Canada's diplomatic approach. Several G7 leaders have privately warned Trump that such aggressive tariffs may weaken global trade systems and violate WTO standards. The World Trade Organization (WTO) has yet to rule on whether the latest tariffs violate international law, but a case is expected soon, with Canada likely to lead or join any legal challenge. Final words from Carney. Carney closed his statement with a calm but firm message. We are a proud trading nation. We believe in rules, cooperation, and economic fairness. Canada will not be bullied, but neither will we be reckless. We are building a more independent, resilient economy, one that works for all Canadians. Conclusion. Mark Carney's reaction to the U.S. tariff hike is a mix of diplomacy, realism, and strategic planning. Rather than matching Trump's aggression with retaliation, Carney is choosing long-term national strength over short-term political gain. While the economic fallout will be real, Carney is betting that a resilient and independent Canadian economy is the best way forward.